Well, hello. This is Karin Zoe Lee, and you're listening to Lotus Moon Productions. Welcome to LMP Music. Whatever the music, whatever the tune, we're here to learn, discuss, and promote the independent music scene. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 45 minutes as Shugo Hanasaki tackles the music industry one artist at a time.
Welcome back to the music side of Lotus Moon Productions. This week I'm cutting the introduction and diving right into our guest of the hour. I've been very eager to speak with him, and I've been listening to his music ever since his fourth album was released last November. With tracks like Fall For You, System Error, Freddy Pretend, Bionicle, Polaroid, and one of his most popular tracks, Together Forever Alone, this artist has captured a special place within many synthwave lovers' hearts. But it doesn't stop there. Before his fourth album, he released his debut album entitled Galaxia back in April of 2015, followed up with Arcade in 2018, and released Database in November of 2019. He's also released cover tracks of video games such as Final Fantasy, Fire Emblem, and Super Smash Bros., and worked with J-pop artist Miki multiple times. Gosh, what a career this artist has made. With such a creative spark, I'm deeply honored to introduce Ethan from Hideotronic. How's it going today, man?
Yeah, wow, who is this person you're talking about? That can't be me. This person sounds too cool.
It certainly blows my mind. Jesus, you've done quite a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm keeping busy.
Yeah, you're 24 years old?
I'll be 24 this year. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, by the way, so much for having me. Shoot. Welcome to the Lotus Moon podcast. Or is this podcast? What is this?
Yeah, it's a podcast.
What am I on? Where am I?
Where are we? Yeah, it's.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good, man. It's
right.
it's its own little thing. I don't even know what to. I guess it's a podcast of what the children are calling it nowadays.
Yeah, a show. It's a show. It's Shugo's show. So, thank you so much for having me. It's a huge honor. I think Karin connected us, right?
Yeah. I spoke to Karin there last year, and we've been keeping in touch. And she's an incredible woman. She's done so much for the synthwave fam, and it's been incredible getting to know so many synthwave artists over the last time. But I must say the honor is all mine because, I mean, your album is just. I went back and listened to a lot of your career, and my gosh, like you have a way with sound, you have a way with lyrics, like you got the whole package, man. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you. I've always enjoyed writing lyrics, and especially when I got into synthwave, there was I don't want to say a lack, because there were artists doing vocal synthwave, but I always felt like, and still feel like, you know, for the vast majority of the synthwave scene, it's mostly instrumental music, and I'm always willing and able to try and put some more out there in the vocal world.
So I mean, there's so much to talk about with your career. Like your career is massive for someone so young.
Wow.
So
Thank you.
Before we dive in though to your career, as usual with my guests at the beginning of the podcast or whatever show we're on.
Yeah, whatever show we're doing. What is this?
Yeah. What is this?
Also, career. Like no one has referred to it as a career before for me, so I appreciate that.
Oh, totally. Well, it is, man. I mean, you got to give yourself props. I mean,
yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, it is. It really is a career. Like you look back from all these, like since 2015 with Galaxia, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's like 6 years worth of work here, like six years worth of accomplishment. That's a career, man. So congrats.
Yeah, I'm really 75. I've just been, working since I was 15, and time traveled to make it look like I released music in 5 years.
Time travel, synthwave, it all works, right?
Yeah.
So about your origins as an artist and everything, like this thing always fascinates me about many artists. And I know you grew up in Thailand, right?
I did, yeah. I was raised as a missionary kid out in Thailand, Chiang Mai, up in the northern mountainous regions. It was a very small community full of other missionary kids such as myself who, it's so interesting because there were a lot of people who were like from the US or from other countries around the world who were raised in Thailand, and our whole lives we were like, oh, well, I'm from this other country, I'm not actually Thai. And the second I like moved back to the States to go to college or anything, I was like, I don't think I'm American.
That's incredible though, growing up in Thailand. Like that's like, it has to be night and day from living in the States and living in Thailand. I mean,
Yeah, it kind of is.
yeah, I mean, where did all the inspiration though with like not just creating synthwave, but creating music in general and becoming a singer? Like, where did all that come from? Like, especially growing up in Thailand.
The whole thing that living in Thailand had as an impact on my life was because, or was that growing up, we didn't have a lot of stuff. We weren't a poor family by any means. Like we were, my family was basically living off of generous donations from people here in the States, which, I mean, I can't thank all of those people enough. If they're out there, they're probably not listening to this, but they supported my family to live out there. And my parents and I, we disagree on stuff regarding religion now, but that's a topic for a whole nother day and everything. But it's like, there's the fact that we were able to live out there and not starve to death and like live comfortable lives. I mean, like I was not wanting for anything. I grew up, I played video games like any other kid. I lived in a neighborhood. I had friends, and I listened to a lot of music. My parents, who were teenagers in the 80s and young adults in the 80s, like they basically raised me on the stuff they grew up on, and so all of the classic music, from everything from ABBA to Styx to one of my mom's favorite bands was like Sting and Air Supply. So like I heard a lot of this stuff growing up, and Take on Me was like my mom was like, all right, kids, clean your room. We put on Take on Me, or like I don't know, some other 80s jam. And so I heard a lot of it growing up, and you don't realize how much music influences you as a kid, and we can get into that further as the show goes on. But basically, what helped about living in a small area, and you'd probably get that same effect if you were to live in rural America, where like you just live in a small area, you have a small group of friends. There was a city nearby where I lived, but most people spoke Thai, and while I did know a little bit, it was really comfortable to hang out with the people who spoke English. So, I did that.
Well, that's really cool. Like the 80s music really sticks to you. Like even when I was young, I heard a lot of 80s music coming from my parents, and it just sticks to you. And then whenever I would walk into like a club or a bar or a restaurant or something, and 80s stations on or something, I'd be just feeling the greatest of ways. And then, a few years ago I found synthwave. So, I mean, it brings back all those vibes, but more, you know what I mean?
Do you remember the first song you ever heard that you could consider synthwave?
From the 80s or now?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, you could obviously say any 80s song, but like, do you remember the first time you heard a song that was like made recently that was made to imitate the 80s?
Well, recently I'd probably say something on the lines of Lau's new album, Believer. Like just this year. I mean, there's been many midnight tracks, of course, too, and Ollie Ride's gotten quite a few as well.
I just mean like when did you get into synthwave? Like what was the first song you heard you were like, oh, this is rad, this is awesome?
Well, it has to be the Midnight. It has to be the Midnight. Yeah, it's got to be probably I mean, the Vampires was their first track I listened to, but as for the 80s vibe, it had to be Endless Summer.
Endless Summer is good. It's kind of geniusly composed, and I come back to it every now and then. I'm like, damn, how did they do this? Right?
yeah. I think Endless Summer was the first song that really gave me that 80s vibe, and I was like, and I started thinking about the Canada Day parades, and like as a kid, I used to watch the parade as a kid, and I just started going back to that time in my head, and I was like, geez, where did this all come from? Like,
I know there's something about certain songs that like even if you've never even lived in the 80s, you can still get that nostalgia wash of like everything is kind of graded in a VHS filter, and the sky has really puffy clouds, kind of laced over with a purplish pink hue to it. You just get that feeling from some songs, and yeah, I don't know, it's crazy how you can do that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's kind of crazy how it can happen to many different people. Like even being 23 years old, like you're 7 years younger than me. So that the fact that
don't sell yourself short. I hope I'm still enjoying synthwave at 30.
Hey, damn youngins on my podcast, man.
God damn it! Get off my property. Let me play the synthwave jams, you piece of shit. Back in my day, we used to play music that wasn't even from our day.
Exactly. This is hilarious. I love it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it's incredible. It's incredible that so many people around the planet, no matter what age you are, can get that same nostalgic vibe, like in that picture that you painted there with that expression and with that.
Right.
Yeah,
and a big
cool.
chunk of that is because like people my parents' age who grew up in the 80s, they became the people who started to run businesses and be able to make music themselves and make movies. And one of the movies I like to point back to that I'm sure people remember, but maybe not as like a reason that we have a strong connection to that time period now is Super 8. Did you ever see that one?
No, I don't think I did.
J.J. Abrams, who was born in like 65 or something and would have, been a teenager in the late 70s, early 80s, did this movie and he worked with Steven Spielberg on it and everything. And it was very much inspired by like Spielberg's 80s movies. And it's, kids are trying to make their own homemade movie with a Super 8 camera and, things go wrong, supernatural stuff. It's very much like if you watch Super 8 now and you're like, oh man, this is very Stranger Things. Like,
okay, gotcha.
You go back to it. Obviously, Stranger Things takes it a step further, and they even have like the synthwave intro, and all the soundtrack is very heavy synth style music. But Super 8, I don't even think Super 8 had like synthwave music in it, but it just had music from that time period, and everyone was very much dressed like it was 1979 or 1980, and they got the aesthetic down perfectly. And I remember watching it as a kid and being like, holy cow, this is awesome. And and my mom, was just like, oh man, I was that age, I remember that. And it was just really cool to see somebody go back to like their childhood, because there have been movies done about the 60s and the 50s and 70s, but I guess for some reason things like the 80s and 90s, and now we're getting into the era where like the 2000s is now 20 years ago. People are going to start getting nostalgic for Sum 41 and Green Day pretty soon if they're not already.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Sum 41 and Green Day. Those are two rock bands from my childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because everyone at some point in their early adult years reaches that point of like beginning to feel strong nostalgia for childhood, because childhood was when you were simpler. Childhood is when you didn't have any responsibilities. Childhood was when you could go out and ride bikes and read comic books and kick rocks outside 7-Eleven. And
yeah,
you could just do that with your friends, and you didn't have to care about paying rent and paying your taxes and the political crap on TV. And whereas, when you're an adult and you have to deal with those things, it's very comforting in a way to look back at old memories like that. And I think regardless of what age you are, goodness, if you have good memories of childhood, which I like to think many people do, you can attach that nostalgia to pretty much anything you want. And in the case of people in synthwave, I think a lot of people, regardless of their age, because there's synthwave artists who are twice my age and vastly more talented than I am, but people all over the place have been making synthwave about this time period that we've all kind of invented. Like the 80s did happen, but synthwave is kind of about a specific dream that the 80s had. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. I did. Yeah.
It's often, like cyberpunk that was made in the 80s is very much like what the 80s dreamed the future would be. And before, it's obviously many people I've met in the synthwave community are very critical of modern technology and social media, as am I. I've said a number of things on like Twitter and places about how I'm like, I kind of hate the social media right now. And
I'm with you.
Agree with me on that. But so that's another thing that kind of makes you want to go back into your memories and into nostalgia and good times. And then if you can attach a song to that, like whether it's a song that already exists or a song that you've written, I think that's one of the most powerful experiences that you can have.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. Now, it's not just synthwave either that you've been working with either. You've been experimenting a lot with chill music lately too. I mean, could you tell the audience about that and what brought that on? I mean, I really loved In Search of Winter Fire.
Oh, thank you. That you're a true fan. So, Hideotronic was not the first, like, or like synth, because I wasn't always Hideotronic either, but like just doing synthwave in general was not the first music endeavor that I had. There was an acoustic band I tried at one point, and there was just like a regular synth pop thing, and I had several different names that I was trying out, but a couple of years ago I rebranded the stuff I was doing as synthwave into Hideotronic because I wanted something recognizable. I wanted a name that, you know, you could look it up and I'd be the only thing there, because I've been using my real name for years, and it got to the point where there were like 30 people trying to compete for that slot on the internet, and I was like, I can't compete with this. I think I'm just gonna jump ship. And I was like, oh, let's get something that's like that evokes Japanese and electronic imagery, because I'm a total nerd. And so I was cycling through like Japanese names, and I was like, oh, like Hideo starts with, like, ends with a vowel, and it kind of rolls off the tongue nicely. And, you know, everyone knows Hideo Kojima as like a brilliant game designer. And so I stuck that. I was sticking a bunch of words. You know, you had like Shigeru-tronic, I'm sure probably would not have caught on as well. But I've settled on Hideotronic, and the big nail in the coffin there was, or nail in the coffin, that's a negative thing. The big, what's the term I'm looking for? I don't know. The turning point was when I looked up Hideotronic on Google and like nothing came up, and I was like, yes, I have this. It's a thing. It's all mine. It's awesome. And so from there, this was like 2 years ago now. I rebranded all my stuff, all my synthwave stuff, to Hideotronic, and so that's why, like, some people who have been listening to my music for years before that may not remember as well as it, because now like albums like Galaxia and Arcade are under Hideotronic brand, but they weren't always, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah. And it's easy to, when something works and you have people attached to a sound that you can do, it's easy to want to push everything else to the side and be like, all right, this is my new focus as a musician. Say you're a funk musician, you're like, well, people know me for funk, so if I came out with like a bluegrass song, people probably wouldn't enjoy that. You can kind of make those judgments for yourself. You really won't know for sure unless you do it, and that's why some bands have fun experimenting with different sounds. And if they have a cool audience, the audience is like, yes, I like this. I like that you're brave enough to expand to different avenues of music. But I figured, I already listened to a lot of lo-fi hip hop. Like when I do my own work, when I do my own, when I'm just chilling out, I need a break, I need something to relax to. I'll put on some lo-fi hip hop, or like some soft synthwave or vaporwave or something. And so it's fun to do synthwave, and I'll keep doing it for as long as I can. But it was just nice to have a little change of pace. It was like, what was it? Middle of January. It was like cold, dark, and snowy. I was feeling cold, dark, snowy vibes, and so I just made a couple beats and put those out. And I had an old recording of one of my friends from Thailand, actually, Hijoda Brodo, who appears on the January Embers song. He'd done that recording like several years ago, and I was just like, hey, can I use this? We never actually made this into a song. And he's like, oh yeah, go for it, man. Yeah. And so I just kind of stuck it onto a track I was already working on, and I think it turned out pretty fun. I think it turned out pretty cool.
Lo-fi music is one of those things that I go to a lot too when I need just to chill out, and I put on a few. There's a few favorites I have bookmarked there. and I just pop them on YouTube or I pop them on my computer, and I just go to town and just relax because it's nice. It's a cool genre. I never even knew it existed a few years ago. It's weird. Synthwave almost kind of led me into it.
Yeah, I feel like I was into synthwave first, and lo-fi is fairly recent, like within the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
And I know Shadowrunner's probably listening to this like, what, you don't listen to my music to relax? I'm sorry, okay? I love your stuff, but I listen to soft like resonance by Home. I listen to that to relax.
Now, throughout the podcast, we'll be chatting about your latest album, Together Forever Alone, if that's all right.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, and we're going to share some track previews, and
Sick.
yeah, we're going to be diving into the background as well, and a few select tracks. But before we get there, there's one thing I'd like to touch on from your previous work, if that's okay.
Go for it.
I was quite impressed that you were able to collaborate with Mickey. And I just wanted to know how that all came about, because I mean, I've loved J-pop my whole life, or not my whole life, but last 50, since how old am I now? The
last 50 years of my life. Yeah.
I was like 15, 16 years. I was like, how old am I now? I was like, geez, it's been since I was like 13, 12 maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be able to collaborate with J-pop artists on synthwave track is incredible.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I just wanted to know how all that came about. She worked with you a couple of times, and I think you both sing English and Japanese, right?
Yeah. So she does sing in English, but yeah, she's one of the most talented people I've ever met. I found her because I was looking. I had already written "Behold the Hunted," which by the way, people who are listening, I thank you so much for the positive reception on "Behold the Hunted." It's like my most popular original song on Spotify, which is, freaking awesome. Thank you. But I had just finished writing it, and one of my friends was doing the guitar part on it, and I was like, I have these lyrics that are about like a post-apocalyptic event where aliens have come and decimated humanity. And like the last remaining bits of humanity have retreated to the underground, very much like a young adult novel sci-fi romance shit. But like the humanity rises from the ashes and fights back against the alien horde, and so the song is about, behold the hunted. They've been beaten down and killed for whoever knows how long, but they're here to fight back, and humanity's not going to go down that easily. I thought it was simple and fun, and as I was singing it in English, I was like, this doesn't have the right level of oomph to it. So I was like, what if I tried getting some Japanese on here? Because and my first thought was like, shoot, I'm gonna have to learn how to pronounce this stuff in Japanese, and and so the first thing I looked up was like, can I get someone to translate this for me? Because you can go onto Google Translate, and if you do, power to you. I do not judge you for using Google Translate. I myself have used it many times if I want to translate something. But I wanted, because this is going to be a published song that people listen to, I wanted someone to actually fact check me on what I'm actually writing. So I went on to Fiverr. Which is a great website if you're just looking for something to get done fast and you don't have any means to do it yourself. Fiverr.com. I'm not sponsored, but please hit me up, Fiverr. And Mickey was there as a translator. She was like, oh, I can translate your lyrics from English to Japanese, and I gave her the lyrics. She got them back to me in like 2 days. It was awesome, and I was like, thank you so much. And she adds a little asterisk to the end of it. She's like, I could sing this too if you want. And I'm like, are you a god? Thank you.
I love it.
So it was just like that. It really wasn't a long conversation. I was just like, that's awesome. Thank you. And so she recorded a couple demos of it, and literally the version that you hear in the final recording is one of those demos. Like it was that good. And we used it. We cut and print it. People liked it. And if you Google right now, all of you listening, Google Behold the Hunted right now. And maybe this will be affected if you've ever looked me up too, but if you look up Behold the Hunted, my song's the first thing to come up, and I'm very thankful for that. So I appreciate all of you. And I
That was really cool.
special thanks to Miki too. So
Yeah, definitely shout out to her for sure. I mean, I've heard some of her stuff, and
she's so talented.
it's just incredible to be able to work with a J-pop artist and to be able to put that spin on there. And also, congratulations on it being one of your most popular Spotify songs.
Yeah. No, we just passed. What are we at now? It's not anything to write home about, but it's like 11K or something, and I'm like, hell yeah, boy, let's go.
I honestly think that's fantastic. 11,000 views for that track is incredible. You've done a lot, like you've worked with video game or video game covers and stuff. But getting back to your most recent album there, I think it has to be my favorite to date. Like I went through your albums there, and I was like, you know what, they're all good, but there's something special, about Together Forever Alone. Like I really did like Beautiful Mystery, for example, from Galaxia. But
thank you. Yeah, that's an Owl City one. Beautiful Mystery.
Yeah. And at least for me though, there was something special about Together Forever Alone, which brings us to our first preview of the podcast. You spoke with Kara and Zoe Lee over on Night Ride late last year, which was the first time I actually heard your voice. I mean, a special shout out to Karen and Night Ride. I highly suggest checking their website out, keeping up to date with their material. Night Ride is fantastic for any synthwave lover out there. So anybody, they definitely get over there and keep track of that stuff. But the story that you told on the background behind the track itself, Together Forever Alone, made me incredibly emotional. Like when you were talking about the story and then you played the track, I teared up and I felt the tears coming, and I couldn't get over it. And this song just hit me so goddamn hard. I can't even express how much. Could you expand on the background of the song itself after we showcased a 45-second preview of it?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So I can't wait for the audience to hear it. For those who haven't, and for those who have, here's a 45-second clip of Together Forever Alone by Hideotronic from his latest album. Now, I can't help but tear up every time I hear this track. And I mean, being gay and growing up with a lot of, homophobia and, just absolute shit people sometimes. I mean, I've had a lot of support too through many, many friends, but, so many people can relate to this track. And I just wanted to hear, like, I know it helped with the Trevor Project, which is incredible. But I just wanted to hear it from you. Like, where did these lyrics come from? Like, how did this song come to be? And I mean, I can't get over the amount of emotion that is in this one song.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And yeah, if you're listening, it's still up right now. As if you buy that track, Together Forever Alone, all proceeds go straight to the Trevor Project, which is a website for, and it's a lifeline for youth in the LGBTQ community to prevent suicide and depression awareness. So if you feel like you want to help donate, you can support them. Or, I mean, honestly, you could just go straight to their website and donate too, but you'll also get a song out of it if you donate to my Bandcamp or what have you. But yeah, so Together Forever Alone, I wrote that because there were several people I knew throughout my life who have struggled with their sexuality, and I'm not above saying that I myself have spent many years trying to figure out who I am and where I stand on my own sexuality and stuff like that. But so it's a topic that hits very close to me. Even though I don't necessarily identify with the LGBTQ community, I feel I'm a very avid supporter of it, and I try to be an ally as best I can. And I've known several people in my life who were like you, Shugo, who felt like they were trapped and faced oppression and hatred on every side just for being who they were, and were unable to love the person they wanted to love because of either societal expectation or their parents or anything like that. And so there was a specific story that a friend of mine told me that they had tried to drown themselves in a swimming pool in one of their neighborhoods, and that line made it straight into the song too. And I wanted to make a song. First of all, I had the name of the album already written down, Together Forever Alone. And so I wanted to work that into a song somehow. So I wanted to pick something that was like, okay, the world is cruel and unjust often, but sticking by your friends and those who love you for who you are is how you will, survive together forever alone, if that makes sense. And the stories of all these people I've known in the LGBTQ community who've struggled with their loving themselves and learning to love those, like learning to accept themselves for the people that they love, and despite the world wanting to beat them down again and again, was very much the inspiration for this song. And it's been a while since I listened to Karin's podcast, but did I mention specifically the story that I've shared on that podcast?
I know you shared a while. I mean, I think it was back in October, or shared
that
a bit.
was a minute ago.
It was back in October when I heard a little bit about it, and I know you just pardon me for forgetting as well, because it's been a while.
No worries.
But I just remember hearing the song and you sharing some even similar to feeling even similar story of what you're sharing now about the track, and the lines in the song and how it portrays what different people across the planet go through on a daily basis. Like even as we speak today, there's definitely somebody out there who can relate to the song, who is thinking or is feeling that way. Right. And the fact that a song with this much emotion, and the fact that you wrote these lyrics, it's absolutely incredible. I just can't thank you enough.
Well, no, thank you for that. Another big motivator too was that there aren't a lot of songs. Well, in general, there aren't a lot of songs about sexuality, but especially in synthwave, it's not a topic that's often covered. What with the many cyberpunk and neon city streets laced with rain songs there be. So I figured, there's probably room for at least one or two, and it's not even the only song I've written about sexuality. I have one on Galaxia called Crazy, which is which was about my own, experience of kind of like the feelings of like, oh, I don't feel totally straight about this. And or like I know like there's a line in it that's like family turns to hate, neighbors discriminate as our alien friends call. So like the metaphor is that people treat you like an alien and they call you crazy for wanting to be a part of wanting to go with the aliens. And you can interpret that as like alien as in like an immigration metaphor, or you could probably use that as like or the metaphor that I wrote it as, which was the gay community and the LGBTQ community. And there was one on arcade, blowing the cartridge, which is a euphemism. And that one's all about a man whose wife leaves him to come out as a lesbian, and he takes it pretty hard, which is the song, because I myself had dated someone who came out to me, and I at the time I had taken it pretty hard. I thought maybe there was something wrong with me. I thought maybe there was more I could do to of course, your brain starts doing things like, oh, I did something wrong. I need to fix this, or maybe they hate me. You get stuck in your own head, and after a little while, I had to come to understand, like, no, this is their life. Like, this is them. And in reality, by dating me, they were trying to cover up for their parents, kind of thing. They're trying to hide it from other people. Yes. And it's hard. And I, even though it hurt in the moment, I eventually had to come to the realization, like, this isn't about me. I got to be here for this person.
I do recall this now. I actually do recall the story that you mentioned now. I do. About you dating somebody. Yes, I do. It's all coming back to me now. No, just a breaking the joke in there. No, but seriously though.
No, you're good.
Yeah, it's I totally understand it, and I mean I've had to go through similar things like that as a child myself. So it's just there's just so much empathy in this one track that it blows my mind. It really does. And
thank you.
The fact that it's there to help with the Trevor project, which is incredible. And again, the first time on Karin's podcast, you just popped on there, you were a guest. I had no idea who Hideotronic was, and all of a sudden you started speaking, you started sharing, and then we heard Together Forever Alone, and then the tears just started coming. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like, how dare he? And I know,
yeah. Like, how dare I show up and be cool?
Yeah. How dare he make me cry? No. But seriously, I was like, who is this guy? Like, oh my gosh, these lyrics, and it hit me so hard that evening. So I mean, to be able to connect with you 6 months later is just,
thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, and back to the beginning of the podcast when I said, it's the honor is just all mine to have you, is because of that one song. I mean, again, the entire album is incredible, and I mean, we're gonna dive into the second track because honestly, we could sit here and talk about this track all day.
We could. I was just gonna say really quick about my appearance on Night Ride. I love Karin to death. She's awesome. She's been a great supporter of my music, even before I had music that I would deem good, And I appeared on her podcast or on her show, and my audio, I've listened back through it, and my audio sounds so blown out, and I keep listening to it, and I'm like, God, I sound like such a fool. And so, Karin, if you're listening, we should do that again sometime so I can redeem myself and redeem my my audio quality, because I don't actually have bad microphone quality, I swear.
I promise.
I promise. No, but she's great. She's a sweetheart. She's been and she uploaded a video of her son dancing to my song Freddie, which was the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life.
I think you can catch her show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm usually in the chat on Thursdays, but Tuesdays I always miss it. But she's you guys are 4 hours behind me, so it's 10 p.m. when I hop on, and it's 6 p.m. for her. So right. I know it's different time zones for everybody else, but definitely check it out on nightride.fm.
Definitely.
So the second track I wanted to showcase to the audience was System Error.
I like this one. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned on Twitter that the lyrics may have been the best you've written so far, and I absolutely love the song too.
Did I say that? It sounds like I'm tooting my own horn a little. No,
not at all, man. I mean, personally, I love writing lyrics, and I can go back and I can look at some of the lyrics I've written and be like, you know what? These are my favorites. I think this is the best one I've done. It's good to be proud of yourself.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm kidding, and I am genuinely. I'm very proud of how that song turned out.
So before we dive into this beautiful track, let's share a 45-second preview of it, and then we'll dive into it. How's that sound, Ethan?
Let's do it.
All right. Without further ado, here's System Error by Hideotronic off his latest album, Together Forever Alone. So getting back to the track, System Error, it's one of your best lyrics you've written so far, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. Tell me, man, the background of the track, where did it come from? How'd you come up with it? Like, I love all of the metaphors behind, I feel like a cyborg, I need a mechanic, just please tell me all about it.
Well, so an overarching theme with a lot of my Hideotronic stuff is the idea of me, Hideotronic, being a robot. And while I didn't commit to it quite as much as Daft Punk did, may they forever be remembered. Absolutely. A lot of my songs, when they're not about just like breakups or general sci-fi nonsense, I've written quite a few songs about like just being a robot and the idea of what does it mean to be human. I think we as a species, as a society, are on the verge of AI becoming as indistinguishable from people as your neighbor is. Pretty soon, that's going to be a reality, I think. And so these songs are kind of, they're not meant to be ominous in a way, but they're just kind of a creative exploration for me as a lyricist to come up with like, well, what would it be like if a machine fell in love? What thoughts would run through their head? Would they have any? In the case of System Error, this machine feels all of the butterflies in its stomach and feels the tingling sensation of like, oh my God, this is crazy. I have never felt this before. Is something wrong with me? Something must clearly be wrong. Someone call a mechanic. Something's wrong. And I thought it was just like a fun little exercise getting to equate the feeling of like swooning for someone that you've just met and been like, oh my God, they're the coolest person in the world. I think I'm falling for them. And imagining a machine doing that, kind of like Johnny Five or Ex Machina or something like that.
That's just incredible, though, how all the metaphors come together with that, though, of being definitely shout out to Daft Punk for sure.
Oh, totally.
The fact that they've finally come to an end in that video of them, just blowing up. That was insane.
Yeah, which can I say, by the way, most bands that go on for that long, usually they'll either like trickle out, fade into obscurity, or they'll try and go out with a bang and release one last song or something, or one last album. But they kind of did both. They
literally went out with a bang.
they went out with a bang. Like their last album is incredible, but their last album was also coming up on 8 years ago. And yeah, 2013, Random Access Memories, that's their last album now. So yeah. I do remember thinking like, you couldn't have like put one more song out or something. I don't know, but I love them. They've been a huge inspiration to me ever since I heard Discovery and got that album growing up.
Yeah, I mean, in System Error, there's so many metaphors and so many lyrics within it, and I'm glad that you shared that about the track because I mean, it's one of my favorites off the track. Like honestly, I listed so many at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah, you're welcome, and I mean. It's just there's so many favorites. Like I wanted to dive into Bionicle, I wanted to dive into Pretend, I wanted to dive into Polaroid.
Let's do it.
I was like, I can't. There's not enough time.
No. That means I'll have to come back on another time.
I guess we'll have to do a part 2.
Tune in next time.
No, but there's so much. There's absolutely so much that I could just talk about with this album because it's just fantastic, and I'm really glad that you shared that about System Error. Now, before we get to the final preview of our podcast, I wanted to give a massive shout out to your remix of 17 by The Midnight.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was super fun to work on.
Yeah, like I highly recommend everyone to go purchase it on Bandcamp. I mean, the contest they had recently was incredible. There were so many entries, and it was awesome that Tim and Tyler released all of the stems from their latest album, Monsters, and definitely go purchase Monsters or listen to it if you haven't already, because I mean, The Midnight is one of my favorite bands around, and I can't get over how much they've put their stamp on the synthwave community, and they just continue to reinvent themselves. What made you choose 17 though? I'm just really curious because I mean, I love it. I love your version of it. It's fantastic.
Thank you. The Midnight, obviously, huge shout out to them, Tyler and Tim, some of the most brilliant musicians of our generation, and I remember I got to go see them when Kids, the album came out. Like, they toured in Seattle, which was like, I think they said it was like their third or fourth show they'd ever done. Or maybe I'm misremembering, but it was like a really early show for them. But they came up to Seattle, and they played their music, and at the time it was like the first show I'd been to where I was like, this sounds just like it does in the studio, but it's live. How do they do this? And you know, it's not like they're a band that's been around for 20 years that's had the time to practice that either, but they managed to pull off their sound that you get either, you know, if you listen on cassette or CD or digital or what have you. Like they managed to replicate that sound, and they're still able to do that. And so they've been I remember going to that show, and I was just like, dude, this is like this is where I want to be someday. I want to be able to do that, and we're still working our way up to it. We meaning me. Anyway, all that to say, the Midnight has had a huge influence on my music. I'm sure it's pretty obvious if you listen to anything of mine. Like there's riffs and there's synths that I use that are, you know, a more critical person might call it derivative, but maybe a more positive critic might say inspired by the Midnight. And on their most recent album, Monsters, they threw everyone for a loop and started trying out new styles and sticking that in with their synthwave, which I'm not sure many people were expecting. And for better or for worse, some songs hit, some songs didn't for me. It's their most experimental album that they've done. And aside from, if you want to say the horror show album is pretty experimental too. But out of all the songs, when I listened to them on Monsters, and Tim, Tyler, if you ever listen to this, I apologize for what I'm about to say, but 17 was probably my least favorite song on the album. And it's not because the lyrics were bad or anything. It was because I respect them for trying out the more hip hop influenced beat and trying for more pop style song than what they're known for. But when I listened to it and I kept listening to it, hoping that maybe this time it'll like hit for me, this will be the one where I'm like, okay, it's actually like one of my favorite songs from them. I never quite got there. And so when it came time to do a remix, and the remix contest was going on, and I was scrolling through their songs and like, oh man, I like so many of these songs. And I started with like, everyone starts looking at Deep Blue and they're like, oh, I want to do a remix of this. But then I was like, no, everyone's going to do a remix of that. So I moved on from that. And then I scrolled through some other ones that I liked. And then after sitting for probably 2 days trying to work on something from one of the songs from Monsters that I really liked, I felt I couldn't improve on it. And I know that sounds a little biased of me to say, but I remember thinking, I'm like, what if I took one of the songs that I don't like listening to normally and tried to make it so it can be a song that I can listen to? And so I picked 17. I tried to make it sound a lot more like what their classic synthwave sounded like, which is kind of where I'm at in my music. And it was a lot of fun, and I think I came out with a version of 17 that I can listen to and I love listening to. And not that I don't like the original one, but it's just, you know, I don't know, man. It was fun. Shut up.
I mean, well, I mean, it's like that with everybody, you know, when everybody listens to an album for the first time. And this, I mean, obviously I can't speak for everyone, but I think I can safely assume that when everybody listens to an album of an artist they like or a favorite artist they like, there's always tracks that they're like, you know what, I like these tracks more, I like these tracks less. You know, I might listen to this track, you know, 10 times in one day. I might listen to this track one time a day. You know, so it's different for everybody. Everybody has different tastes, right? So, I mean, I don't think an artist would be offended by that. I mean, if you wanted to do a remix of a track that, you know, wasn't one of your favorites, the fact that you were able to take a track that wasn't one of your favorites and spin it and make it, you know, incredible. Because I think it's one of my favorite synthwave remixes to date.
Wow.
Honestly, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. After I heard this, I was like, this is available for purchase, right? Like, how do I find this? Where do I get this?
I know, and I saw a bunch of people be like, "Can this be on Spotify?" And I'm like, "I'm so sorry, no."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I'm hoping the Midnight maybe at some point will take like a selection of remixes and put them into like, instead of doing Remix 03, they just kind of do like a monster to all the contests, because I mean they had so many incredible remixes, and I mean
like thousands of submissions or something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they made a few YouTube videos about it, and they shared some on Twitch, and so I mean it's just there's just so many. So hopefully they'll make it like a tribute album of a bunch of them.
Right.
But we're getting back to Together Forever Alone, and getting back to the third track that I wanted to share with the audience was one of my favorites from the album, which is Only a Dream.
Really?
Yes. I loved it. Loved it. Now, I've told people how much I love the saxophone, and Pedro Esparza, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Esparza, I think.
Esparza, yeah, it does it absolute justice. So if it's okay, could we share a track preview and dive into the background of that track to finish things off?
Oh, totally. Yeah, let's go.
Sweet. All right, here is Only a Dream by Hideotronic off the latest album, Together Forever Alone.
It's only a dream. In a comatose state, I relate better than it would seem. She said, maybe I could try to tell you this is only a dream. 'Cause I'll fly to where you are in the stars when you're falling asleep.
Now I can tell it's a love song, which sounds like an unforgettable encounter. The lyrics, the sound, the sax, it's an incredible track, Ethan. I mean, as I mentioned before the preview, it's one of my favorites on the album. So where did the inspiration for such an incredible heart-pounding like song and lyrics come from?
Well, this is going to sound as cheesy as the 80s can come, but it was inspired by a woman.
Oh man, who did I speak to a while back? It was I mentioned the more cheese, the better.
Absolutely. No, yeah, it was. There was a hot, steamy encounter. We'll leave it at that. And this, the second I was back to writing music again, I was just like, "Holy shit, dude! Has anybody else found this? Has anybody else discovered this is what you could do in life?" And I was like, I sat down and wrote those lyrics out. At first it was just the chorus of like, maybe I could tell myself it's only a dream, and instantly I was like, this has to have sax in it. Like, this has got to have like the most energetic, I almost went with the sensual sax, but then I was like, no, this has got to be like upbeat. This has got to be like my the joke that I make with a lot of my friends is like, oh, my music is depression you can dance to. So
I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. I like that.
Yeah. So if I can make a song with like that deals with like a sad topic or like or it's like a happy topic but it sounds sad, if I can do something like that, then I've done my job as a weirdo and a musician. So for this one I was like, the first verse is about like the encounter, and it flip flops back and forth. The two verses flip flop back and forth between like the encounter and walking away from the encounter with this person, and the chorus kind of does that repeating with the sax follow up where it's like, it almost happened in the blink of an eye. This person was like the greatest thing that had ever happened to me for like one weekend, mm-hmm. and then they were gone, and what do you do after that? You're just like, well, I just return to my daily life, and that's fine. And wherever they are today, I hope they shall remain nameless, but I hope they're doing all right. I hope they enjoyed the song if they got to hear it.
I love it. Though. I love that story, man. I mean, I've been saying I love it for the entire album. I almost sound like a broken vinyl. But it's only a dream, man. It's incredible to have the amount of lyrics, the amount of feelings into one weekend adventure is cool. And I love. I spoke about this before with another artist as well, where you can speak about a day, you could speak about a weekend. You can encompass, like, you hear a track and it takes you back to a day or a weekend or something that you've been doing, and the fact that you were able to capture all of that moment, all those emotions, all of that, all the feeling into one track from one weekend. It's just, I think it's so cool when any artist does that. So, thank you once again for making such an incredible album.
Thank you. The other thing I was going to say about the actual composition of the track is that the intro, which some might listen to it and feel like, oh, it's just kind of like, it's a little long. It's kind of got a whole different feel from the rest of the track. That's because I had written it as a different song at first and ended up combining the two when I wanted it to kind of have a oh, you know what it was If You're Too Shy, Let Me Know by the 1975 had come out, and they had like a full minute of just kind of like ambient synth and guitar stuff going on for the first minute of that track, and then it bounces into the beat. And I heard that and I was like, I gotta do that. I gotta find a song on here to stick like some cool synth with no beat, just kind of dicking around with the instruments a bit, and stick that at the beginning of a song. And so Only a Dream ends up being the longest, maybe not the longest song on the album, but one of the longer songs on the album. But I'm very happy with that intro. I think it sounds really cool. And then when I got the Pedro Esparza sax part on it, I was like, oh, this is rad. This is cool.
Yeah, it definitely completes it. And you were right. It did need sax. I mean, everything needs sax. I tell everybody I'm such a slut for the sax.
Hell yeah. And don't let nobody shame you for being a slut for the sax, okay?
Oh man, I am. It's just so good. And I mean, so now that we're and finally, after everything that we've spoken about, before we end things, what's next for Hideotronic? We've covered so much in this podcast, but what can fans expect over the next 6 months from you?
Oh my goodness. Boy, do I have plans. So there's two things. There's two projects I'm working on at the moment. One of them is a cover album of songs that I will not reveal yet, because I mean there'll probably be multiple cover albums in the future. I love putting my own spin on songs that already exist, whether that be ones I like or don't like. And let's just say there's a anniversary coming up for a certain collection of I won't say anymore. And the other project, of course, is originals, which I'm always writing. I'm always working on them. I got some fun collaborations lined up once I actually have anything done worth sending to them. There's a lot going on, and of course I have a job that I do to make ends meet, and so at the moment there is nothing, but this year there will be many things. So everyone stay tuned, and thank you again so much for listening to my stuff and continuing to support my crazy little hobby that Shugo over here has even called a career.
Well, it is, my man. You've done so well for yourself, and I can't wait to see what the next 10 years bring you.
Oh, dude. One of my biggest inspirations as a musician is Otis McDonald. I don't know if you know him at all.
No, I don't think I am. No.
He has a lot of songs that have like made their way into YouTube videos that have gone far bigger than he has, but he's just a brilliant funk musician who he's like in his 40s now or something. He's been writing music for over 20 years, and every video he uploads of him like writing a new song in his studio, like he looks like he's having the time of his life. And he's like whooping and hollering at some of these live tracks he's working on, and like he'll just be like on the drum set coming up with a fill, and he uploads all this stuff to like Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and all the places. But like he is one of those musicians who I hope when I'm his age I'm having just as much fun as he is. So.
Well, if you keep up at this pace, I'm sure you will.
Hell yeah.
And with that, we will wrap things up. Thanks so much for spending this time with me, Ethan. It was an absolute honor to speak to you once again.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Everybody, if you're not already, wait, can you subscribe? No, if you follow Lotus Moon Productions, check out all of the show episodes. Support your boy. Support the synthwave scene, and love one another.
Yeah. Well, I'm deeply humbled, man. Thank you. And yes, love one another. Share everything in the Synth fam. Speaking of sharing, could you share your social media with everyone so newcomers know where to purchase your music?
Absolutely. So one of the best parts about being able to have a name that no one else has is you can go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all the places, and just type in Hideotronic, and there I be. So if you want to support me directly without having to worry about other companies taking a cut, specifically on Fridays, go to Bandcamp and type in hideotronic.bandcamp.com, and you can find all the shit I've made and all the good stuff, all the bad stuff. It's there, but I'm on all the places. So Hideotronic on YouTube, Hideotronic on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and yes, SoundCloud is there too. I should probably pay for the premium membership so I can keep uploading music there, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, and Audius. I get notifications all the time that I'm on Audius. I totally forgot I made an Audius account, but apparently I'm on Audius. So that's another spot. I don't know. It's everywhere. Check me out. Twitter.
Hideotronic is taking over the internet.
Yes, Hideotronic is the new computer virus that's gonna spread. Twitter, yeah, I think it's just at Hideotronic. So follow me there. I that's the one where I'm at most frequently, and I'll post updates about stuff I'm working on, or I'll retweet stuff that friends are doing. Shadowrunner and Primo just came out with an absolute banger of a song, so go check them out. Shout out to them.
Absolutely, shout out to Primo and Shadowrunner. Indeed, I'm loving their new song, so
Yes.
Definitely go out and purchase that as well.
Yeah, and follow Shugo, Lotus Moon Productions. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, yeah. I was just about to get to the social media, so thank you,
dude.
I'm
one step ahead of you.
You are. Did I find a new co-host?
Well, you said there were 10 more songs you wanted to cover, so it looks like I'll have to be back sometime.
Yeah, I mean it's a date, man. We'll set it in,
Yes,
and maybe over the summer when you're released some of those cover tracks, we'll have you back.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. And as usual, you can find all of our socials at SoundCloud under Lotus Moon Productions, Facebook under Lotus Moon Productions, Instagram under Lotus M Productions, Spotify under LMP Music, Twitter under Lotus Moon Prod, and you can search us on YouTube under Lotus Moon Productions.
Yes.
There's been so many. There's so much social media, so many names. I couldn't have it all. Oh my. Well, this has been LMP Music. Please be kind to one another. Be safe, and with that, we are signing off.